Pounders, welcome back and good morning. The first morning show for Adjust the Ranks featuring Billy Jones. My friend, welcome to the live stream. Looking forward to our conversation today.
Yo, what's up? Yeah, it's always fun to do just like conversation about best ball and not just to do a draft because when you do a draft, you get stuck into talking about whoever you're going to pick. Now we can have like everything's at our disposal today.
There it is. There it
Yeah.
is. And that's the beauty. And love some of the charts that you've put together for today's show. We're going to be covering all the risers, the fallers from day one in BBM, as well as this most recent week and where these players are trending to. Let's get right into your first sheet here, and we can probably start by doing a little bit of explaining. Let me see if I can make it bigger too. If I take it off of Twitter.
Yeah.
But
While
you
you
want to
do
start?
that, I'll just explain what we're doing here today. So I have like two sets of charts. One that's going to be the movement on day one, and then from day one through the rest of the week, or to this morning. And the reason that I'm doing that is because we know that day one is just so mispriced that comparing day one to the rest of that opening ADP versus the rest is just not. It's not like apples to apples anymore. So we kind of should just bifurcate the two populations. So that's what I'm doing
Mhm.
here. On here we have risers on one set of like visuals and fallers on the other, and we split them up by like raw ADP movement and then also draft capital cost. I like to think of like draft capital cost as like if you turned each pick into a dollar value. Some of us are familiar with like auction drafts and how the high players are going to be really expensive and then it falls off, so people from like pick 100 to pick 200 aren't really going to be that much different from like a dollars you have to pay for to get the guy. It's a $4 guy versus a $2 guy or something like that.
Mhm.
And so that's what that's intending to look at. This is a great chart to show that. Is just show that those early picks are just so expensive, and then it really just becomes incrementally less expensive as you go down the
Mhm.
draft board.
Right. So you set the number to what is the exact number set here? Is it like 110
Something like that. I would have to
is
show.
worth?
Yeah, I could probably take a look at that. I don't have that in front of me right now, but
Yeah.
a little over 100, and I think it'd probably be good to scale that to 100, and
Mm.
then
But it
bring it.
cuts in half by pick 21.
So before you hit the third round, you're also the value of the brick goes down pretty quickly, and then it flattens out, and that's why there's a couple takeaways here. One, that like moving people around in the later rounds, if a guy goes from like pick 140 to 120, that really from a cost perspective isn't as
Mm.
material as someone going from pick like 50 to 45. Like that may not be a
Right.
perfect number, but like that's
Right.
it's the scale is a little different early in the draft versus later in the draft.
Which makes sense, and this sort of backs some of what I'm trying to do in these contests, and that's uh, if I don't have a strong take, use the overlay combination tool to break my 50-50s. Basically, it's my way to randomize. So if I don't have a strong take between two receivers in one range, let's say it's Garrett Wilson and JSN. If I have 60% or 40% Garrett Wilson and Jefferson shares, and I only have 11% JSN, that's where the randomizer is already it's taken out for my portfolio. It helps me make that decision because we know how important these first couple picks are for our whole lineup. And this is something that you see Hayden talk about, everyone talk about, and it's nice to see people put a number on it. I also like I do like some of the other overlays that they give you like a calculator basically for like how
Mm-hmm.
much you spent a QB, running back, receiver, and I'm sure some of this stuff is in there, which is really neat. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
and
So
so
after
this just gives context to like the whole concept of like draft capital, so that we're going to see on the charts. Um,
after pick after and this is round what like just after 8, 9,
Mm-hmm.
9, it's really, really flat. So going up and getting your guys is, it's not as bad as the early picks. Reaching in the early rounds can be punishing, and we've seen data to support that as well, right?
Mm-hmm. You're giving up a lot of just like implied value right away. But it's also, I think the big thing for me is if a guy used to be a $2 guy or $3 guy, pick 170, and now he's pick 110. Like that is really not an insane amount of value, even though like in our heart, like we think that, oh my gosh, I'm getting a horrible like position on this player. It still is like in the grand scheme of things, not nearly as consequential typically as with the early guys that you're taking. So
Right.
um, yeah.
Let me see if I can download it, and I added it to Paint. Let's see if it's a little bigger for everybody. It should be. So at the
Oh,
top
there we
here,
go.
ADP. This is the opening ADP on BBM day 1. And you can just go through and explain the tabs at the top. This is
Yeah, so it's this chart is risers. This is kind of there is a little bit of like maybe a bug, maybe it's not a bug. We'll talk. It's an interesting talking point. But so on the left hand side, players and their teams. ADP is like the middle bar, draft capital on the right hand side. In the ADP section, you have the number and then where they kind of fall in the draft. So mid round, whatever, or late or so on. Then you have the delta. So that's a triangle is the change in numbers, and then delta percentage. So change in
where they're going.
percentage. Yeah. And then you bring it over. So draft capital. So that chart that we were just looking at. So this is the dollar
Yeah.
amount kind of consideration. So the quantifying the leap in someone late in the draft versus early in the draft. In this quarterback section, I think the big takeaway one is how small the numbers were in terms of risers on day one. And
Yeah.
you even see like quite literally someone who dropped in, like Cam Ward went down from 153 to 153.6. So technically a decrease, but because of everyone going down on day one, he was marked as a riser per this because I just filtered by top 5. So maybe
That's
I
so
should in
cool.
the future have put a 0 there, but and like or just zeroed him out. But
No, I like that. I like that because that's how I feel about Keon Coleman. Like everyone that I was drafting past him is like either now ahead of him or now like really close to him, and they've risen like 40, 50 picks, like Bash or Kyle Williams. It's like shit. Now I don't mind the Keon Coleman click, and now I'm willing to click him in his new range based on my exposure to the other players that I used to have after him. So that's funny that Cam Ward pops up here as a riser just due to the range around him moving.
The whole position as a quarterback fell on day one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Baker got 2 additions.
Mm-hmm.
Pick 10 tight end with Colson Loveland, and they get Luther Burden, which is insane. He fell 1 pick, but crazy.
Yeah. And then so running backs, we see some of the names that we expected here. RJ Harvey went through the moon, like that completely fake 155. You see Ashton Genty jump up significantly from late round 1 to like almost flirting with the middle of round 1. Chase Brown got reset. Jaden Blue from like borderline undrafted to now substantially in the 15th round. And DeAndre Swift with the reset as well, jumping up 2 rounds. Like these are a lot of guys that we called out in that ranking show, which I think feels really good as as from our process perspective. But yeah, that's what we're looking at here.
Pretty crazy, and it's tough to really quantify where everyone was getting RJ Harvey, right? Like his ADP was 155. If you were drafting on Contest Open, like I did, I was in the second room right after when Pete was live with Karain. And in that first room, in that my first draft, he went at pick. I should pull it up. He went at pick like 48. and Travis Hunter went like 32. I'm like, guys, what are we doing? Now, obviously, in hindsight, drafting when oversets live with 1,000 people watching, talking about the slappy picks is just a bad call by me. Just a bad call. But I wanted to see where these ADPs are going, and it did settle. I didn't draft a BBM again until later that night, around 11 p.m., and it got a lot softer. And the prices, again, Harvey in the 80s, 90s, pretty easily that night because his ADP didn't shift until like the following day. It's tough to tell. Yes, he started at 155. How many people got him in the 120 plus range? Is going to be very, very low, though.
Yeah, going to be really low. And then when we look at the next set of charts from like this through the rest of the week, he still does rise too. So which is super interesting. But yeah, this is a lot of guys that had to reset because of situation. I don't know, like Genty was like, I think that his situation was always going to be good. So that was kind of goofy to me that he goes up quickly. But the rest of the guys landed in positions that are just like a dream.
Absolutely. Yeah. Or, yeah, like the Bengals just really don't touch it. Don't touch it, RB. Same thing with Swift. Don't touch it. Don't touch it, RB. So they get these nice boosts. And again, like we looked at the chart earlier, it's not that big of a deal to go get Swift at 106 versus 122. Like you shouldn't be afraid of that rise because of the opportunity cost isn't that much in that range.
Mm-hmm.
And we can look at, I'm sure we have him where he's going today too, but these are crazy percents here.
Yeah, it's just with the low dollar people that just goes from like being worthless to having like a moderate low value.
Right.
Yeah. Like you'll see it in the next one with the Mason Taylor, the tight end.
Let's go. That's my boy.
Mm-hmm.
Such a lucky landing spot, but I was just happy for the capital. All right. Mason Taylor was going in the 20th round, undrafted in some drafts for the big board, but to open BBM at 216, they did give him an ADP.
I think that likely I definitely move like anything that's unranked to 216 just so the math doesn't hate me. And it's just laziness, of course, from like but this essentially, he went from like undrafted to you might think about drafting him to having an ADP. I think that's interesting. Him and Juwan Johnson.
I'm trying to remember, Underdog may have not even given him an ADP.
Yeah, probably not,
because a lot of those rookies they didn't, but
likely he did not.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And now he's flying. He's flying up the board. He's just one of those risers still today. And this is day one that we're covering. We'll get into where the movement is in the last week. Colston Loveland, someone that we had rising, he's up from here too. But this is half a round in one day. As Warren is falling too, right? So if you're fading the faller and you're getting closing line value on someone that's rising, you're doubling up there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brenton Strange, I gotta mix. I probably gotta mix some in. I think there's just some sort of bias there that I'm pick blind. I'm a little pick blind to Brenton Strange, but he's still rising, which is fun. I mean, he's getting good coach speak. He's getting good coach speak from the GM too, which I try to ignore. He seems like he's going to be the guy there. So a lot of open targets with no Evan Ingram, no Christian Kirk. So definitely good opportunity. Juwan Johnson and Jake Ferg, who still goes in a good range.
Yeah, with Ferguson, we're going to hear it about a billion times this offseason. Who else are they going to throw the ball to? He's going to make a target share. Like it's almost like every time you hear that drink. That's drinking game. We're going to get a lot of people drunk.
That's perfect. It's true. It's true. He's not a big yards after catch guy, but that's the problem. Like, if there were more people in the offense, like, we could bury him, but you
Hmm.
can't. You just can't. Um, that being said, Dallas could be a dumpster fire this year. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't expect too much change from last year, though. Travis
Yeah, and
Hunter.
then yeah, we're moving on
Oh,
to wide receiver now, and you see the first four names are buzzy rookie wide receivers and good landing spots. Travis Hunter got the run out that we wanted. Jack Besh, Kyle Williams, Trey Harris, exciting guys we knew were going to snap up. It was just a matter of like
mm,
landings. And then CD Lamb got no competition, and so kind of just he was the guy who was going to move up in the early round if you're going to try to build a wide receiver heavy team.
right. It's not too surprising to see these four. Uh, do you think Travis Hunter rises less on Cleveland, or do you think the hype is still just as strong?
I think that I mean, I guess it's tough to answer that question just because with the Cleveland thing, if they draft Travis Hunter, the whole draft looks like differently. I feel like the whole energy about what they do. I think they make the trade and then they do this less inspiring like defensive line pick and like a good like they do good football management, but then they're like, what do we? We didn't actually plan this. Like, what do we do
Yeah,
next?
yeah, right, right. We have Joe Flacco.
Like what are we supposed to do now? Like didn't I feel like they like had apparently they had this trade in place for a while, but they didn't like tease out how to make the rest of their draft work because it was like buffoonery the rest of the time. So like
Mm,
would Travis Hunter have been better? I don't know. I do think that the Jaguars are an interesting build now. Like
yeah,
Travis Hunter is going to get to that 3-4 turn. Tell me builds with BTJ, Travis Hunter. You can do it so many ways. Like you could do it with an elite quarterback and be like, I got the
mm,
wide receiver pieces. I don't need Trevor Lawrence. I could have Trevor Lawrence, and you could do some level of ping ponging.
right.
They can like
And
it's
for
like
that
the
reason, he's more exciting to draft now because you might want to be heavier on Trevor Lawrence, who probably should be rising based on the
hmm
pieces coming to the offense. So knowing their stacking partner too is just it makes them a little more draftable. You think about like Judy, some of the Cleveland pieces
hmm
are, the unknown. New Orleans, it's a little tougher to click these guys. It's like who's going to be throwing them the ball. So that's a good point.
Yeah, but that stacks like we're going to talk about at some point in these one of these shows like stacks that currently exist and then are going to go away. Like that one's only going to be coming into like fit better as
Mm,
he rises because Brian Thomas is going to be on the turn, that 1-2 turn, and so he's just going as Travis Hunter rises, he's going to be cleaner and cleaner to do it. Um, yeah, so it's probably better if like you're gonna get unique with the build, it's to do it early when people it doesn't just perfectly line up and like you're gonna be like ding ding and then you um move on. So yeah.
right. Definitely a lot of movement for the rookies on day one after the landing spots for BBM, as expected. Um, Jack Besh. I can't wait to see where he is today. It's there. The closing line values like getting thinner and thinner, quicker and quicker every year, just due to people staying more in tune with content, having ranks, um, and just drafting more early to kind of capture that closing line value on the movement. And we're seeing the ADPs really finalize, like get closer to their true worth faster than previous years where maybe it was more appetizing to do 20, 30 of these before you get the schedule. Now it's like, man, what am I capturing on Trey Harris at pick 104 for closing line value? How much further can he go up when it's like Cooper Cup, Downs, and Mooney are the next three receivers? It's like it's really getting thin. Not to say there aren't other players to go ahead and focus, but some of those favorites in the favorite landing spots, it's been a little more punishing, I'll
Well,
say.
it's almost like you see the tournament become more mature and all of the big like market movers ETR, leg up, spike week, fantasy footballers, to like anyone, maybe us, I don't know.
Be us.
But like everyone had ranks out like before the drafts dropped, so it wasn't as if people were like having someone checked off as a target, and I'll just like take him slightly ahead of ADP. People were like, I know the value I want him at, and I'm going to. The moment gets past that, it's like my desire to just take him will just happen. So I just don't. I think that you had people pinning to like ranks rather than ADP more now than ever.
Mm-hmm. I will say it's interesting to see CeeDee Lamb down here, obviously as a first round pick. His movement doesn't have to be as much to change the worth. Is this right column right here? The
Exactly.
4.0, right? So his worth based on his ADP is 82, referencing that earlier chart. 78 to 82, the four movement, 11.6%. And some of the RBs are starting to fall a little bit as people realize it's harder to go and get a wide receiver room that you like if you're not drafting early receivers. So you are seeing like Jefferson move up a little bit, Lamb move up a little bit. But this is interesting for day one movement.
Mm-hmm.
People see Dallas didn't touch it on offense. And they're like, wow, Lamb's just slated for 30% target share, just like that. So definitely an interesting ad here to the risers.
Yeah, let's do fallers now.
Got it downloaded. That and Lamb's such a tough one because you don't want to be out on Lamb because we've seen his ceiling before, but we've also seen the dumpster fire that Dallas could be as well. So it's going to be a fun one to track this year. But yeah, it's some people are just fading him, which that's tough. That's a tough sell for me. All right,
Awesome.
quarterback
So
faders. Start us
yeah,
off.
this was like a huge, like I think as a whole position. And I will eventually get some more charts for like together, but as a whole position, quarterback fell. So these are some of like the most notable.
Mm.
And I did. It's not like any of these. I like. I mean, I like Goff. I like Knicks. I think it is just kind of like position wise. It fell. Stafford is if he's falling, like I think quarterbacks just in generally expensive. I think he should be a later round pick, just because of his like I guess less inspiring upside. But I still like I would double stack the Rams with the Stafford quarterback on that. Like,
Mm.
um, yeah. So
Isn't Staffy just isn't he just a good piece for your team? Whether you have let's say your first QB stacked and you're panicking for a QB2, maybe like back stacks are running out, like the Bryce Youngs are gone. Cam Ward goes because he goes before Staffy. Isn't he just a good advance rate piece on certain teams?
yeah, he's just like a less inspired. I mean, he's not going to run for you like you would hope, but in terms of like getting starts and why can't he have a 4 touchdown game? I mean, like that very much seems like in play. So yeah, I completely agree. This it's kind of just the quarterbacks just didn't move a ton. I mean, a little bit of decrease, a little bit of increase on the opposite chart. Yeah. So this is hold up. This is the rest of the week through. Like we're doing a little apples and oranges comparison here. So let's do day one fallers. So we need to change the chart that we're showing.
Okay. Let me have a find here on the Twitter machine. So you had rest of the week fallers. I see. So it's gonna be right here. One sec. Right here. Got it.
Here we go.
All right. Good catch. All right.
Yeah.
So you see a lot of the same names.
Yeah, similar story. Interesting. Jaden Daniels has a slight fall in that like, I mean, 39 to 41 isn't huge, but I think it's just people being excited in the first early rounds and having patience at quarterback. Um, yeah, and then so I think it's the same story.
Yeah. Yeah. With Darnold, with Staffy. Was Penix on the other one too?
He
It's
was
interesting that
he wasn't. It's almost like if outside of Daniels, they're all like non-runners. So you stack
right.
them up, and then you have respect that the room's going to let you have your guy. And if not, you're like, okay, fine. I have the better side of the piece anyways.
Uh, I wonder how much of this, which Daniels is interesting, but how much of this is due to just changing from 20 round drafts to 18, where more teams are just selecting two QBs. So
Hmm.
they don't need to go get that third QB earlier. Um, there's just less teams drafting three QB builds, which is making these middle round guys, I think, fall.
Yeah, the scarcity part becomes less of a problem because say six drafters go from three to two. That's six guys that now become back into the player pool in later rounds. Yeah, this next section is really interesting. I thought that so there's two guys. It's kind of like a function of how small numbers are going to work on this chart because Saquon and Bijan both had a small fall because of wide receiver thirst right at the beginning of the draft. That was where you saw CD kind of move up a little bit. Like this is the direct inverse of that. Um, Justin Jefferson would have moved up a little bit into this
Yes,
prestige
yes,
draft.
yes.
And also just kept
Because
getting like turning like ADP into or just single number ranks. You're gonna have some of this like funniness happen like this, but their value didn't really materially change.
yes, because they didn't change positions, but trending that way they could. And let me just take a peek at what Underdog ADP is today in regards to just Jefferson catching up to these guys. Jefferson is at 3.8. Bijan's at 3.7. Those two are going to flip. I'm telling you, those two are going to flip. I can't tell you when. It's very soon though.
I think it's already happened. You're gonna look at the other chart today, and it's going to be
I just
like
refreshed. They flipped.
yes.
3.6 and Bijan's 4.0. CD Lamb 4.6. He's going to flip Bijan now. Like he's next on the list to flip Bijan.
Yeah, it's. I think Bijan's just I don't know. I mean, you think about like storylines that are going to come out this like offseason. They're going to rank the running backs, and
Mm.
the thing is going to be like, oh, he hasn't been overly explosive. He hasn't had big game like the big like Saquon Gibbs kind of like profile. So he's the one might be a slight faller, but his like floor is really only like maybe pick six.
And I think because you can get him in the contest later, is that one where I guess if you want to be overexposed, like I want to be overexposed to Jefferson, so I've been clicking him over Bijan. I want to be overexposed to CD Lamb, so I've been clicking him over Bijan this whole time. Uh, I didn't fully expect to be able to get Bijan at 5 or 6 later to this contest, but that's even better because I don't mind being relatively flat in the first round, but not the cost of like construction wise. It's very hard to start RB in that first round, like going Bijan over Jefferson. And we've talked about this, like the 2v2, Jefferson plus JT or Jefferson plus Bucky versus Bijan, and you're praying like lads there, or you're going like T Higgs. So Bijan and T
Yeah,
Higgs, or Jefferson
Tyreek.
and Bucky. It's like,
Yeah, and so, like, I'm just looking at the board. So, Jamar Chase, Saquon, Justin Jefferson, in some order, probably stays as is. But I could see CD Lamb moving above Bijan. I could see everyone ranking Gibbs over Bijan, and that eventually
mm,
happening. So, yeah, I think there's a world where he's going to kind of finish at like the 5.7 range.
Mm, I could see that, and you'll get him. You'll get him at 6, probably a decent amount. The people that
Mm-hmm.
want to get their Gibbs bags up. So I'm looking forward to that. That's looking very good right now.
Yeah, and then some like I guess from like later round guys, Najee, that sucks. From Andre, you have like one of the most exciting picks in on the board from the draft, kind of takes your job, and then Jerome Ford, they take two guys. So there's guys we identified on that first night that were going to fall, and you see it with each of these guys 15, 15, 20 pick falls.
Najee, and this is just one day, guys. So we're just showing day one where they started and where they fell to. We'll get to where they are going this most recent week. That's a massive fall, especially with the amount of people that come in. They don't really know where these players are going. Some of them, and they're just going off ADP, or auto drafters will keep these fallers from falling as fast as they should, just because they're again selected on auto. Stevenson, Jerome Ford, and I want to say this is trending the same way for these three. I would say in your next chart, if I had to guess.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just gonna we're gonna see this all off season. There's not really a reason to draft these guys. I always am like curious when someone drafts these guys around ADP. I'm like, why are you doing that? And look at the rest of the team and see like, are you informed? But yeah, this was just it's important to like not just capitulate to ADP and have a plan with all these guys.
Jerome Ford's been a tough one and kind of a thorn in my side for the Browns. And I'm almost getting to the point where it's like, well, you know what? For this RB2, do we just wait for coach speak? Because Jerome Ford takes a contract pay cut, keeps him on the team, which, I mean, if he got released, wheels up for Quinshon, wheels up for Dylan Sampson. Now that you have him on the team this year, it's tougher to make a determination of who's going to have that RB2 work between Ford and Sampson. And what you're seeing is, because no one knows, is both of them are falling. Do you
Yeah,
have any lean there on RB2? Is it just wait for a little more information, maybe dabble on the one that you think is going to get the job? Because I could see a riser in that situation when we have clarity.
yeah. I don't. I feel like the floor is still increasing. Like it's still good. They're still going down. So it's like have patience a little bit. Just because you missed the point of having good value, and this chart shows that on some of these guys, and on certain players, and now you're going to be like, I think we're missing the. You don't want to miss the floor too. So yeah, I'm just gonna wait on coach speak for some of those guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Komet, right to the gulag. Tyler Warren, and this is still going down. Fannon's basically not draftable. Njoku, this was interesting because he's been dropping since he opened up in the big board. And I used to hate his ADP. And now it's like, okay, they don't get Travis Hunter and he continues to fall. That's why I didn't understand his ADP during the big board. A team that, you know, and this is before they even brought in Flacco. People were taking him near 100. And they bring in Flacco, which should be good news for these pass catchers in Cleveland. They don't bring in Hunter, and he's continuing to fall. Is this mainly just because of the players around him rising up, that they were just too discounted, so Njoku just has to fall?
I don't know. I mean, I haven't given a ton of thought to this like Browns passing situation. I think just like if you snap react to it, you're like quarterback looks stupid, and they brought in a tight end that we like, so move him down. But quarterback might be like moderately functional, like dysfunctional in the locker room. But like if from like you would never draft one, but like can they support a couple pass catchers? Maybe. And Njoku, is he going to really lose significant reps to the tight end too, who walks like a duck? Like I don't know. So maybe it's just like kind of like systemic stink more than it is like actual analysis on Njoku's situation.
It's funny you bring up the QB situation. And there's just lack of confidence, obviously, when you see what they did there at QB. Um,
And it's an entirely unstackable situation, which will just drive any player to be dropped
yeah,
because you're like, I'm not going to draft a quarterback. I'm like, I definitely don't want to draft multiple of them. So like, you just kind of let them fall.
you're not as excited for the Browns for me, New Orleans, unless it's Kamara. But same thing
Hmm.
with the Browns, like pretty excited for Quinshon and the positive coach speak he's getting there. But Njoku, you could just see that when Flacco plays, though, he's gonna have a couple spike weeks. Like, I don't know what weeks those are gonna be, but I'm excited for the weeks that Flacco does play because I think the Cleveland Browns pieces between Njoku, between Cedric Tillman could pay off in just a few short weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. You just don't, how much do you really need from them?
But like Besh going above him now. Kyle Williams is getting there. I think he might have passed him. He's getting close. Trey Harris. So some of these rookies that got the good landing spot are moving ahead of Njoku, pushing him down the board even further. When shit in 18 round drafts, like Njoku's a better click than the big board, where it's easier to catch up in a 20 round draft, just going 3 tight ends. Njoku is one of those guys that I could stop at 2 with. Give me, and it's always a fun, interesting exercise that we could do this on another show of like, where's your 2 QB pairing? Like, what's that
Hmm.
threshold? Same thing for Njoku. He's just one of those guys that I feel a little more comfortable with, especially with no Travis Hunter. It's like we're counting that Travis Hunter went to the Browns and they don't have a QB, which
Hmm.
that was part of the risk of him in the big board. So I don't. It's interesting to see.
Yeah, it's like quadruple counting.
Exactly. Exactly.
And then so yeah,
Man.
we saw Nico Collins drop a little bit right off the bat. Puka Nakua drop a little bit right off the bat. I think that's just some like first round shuffling that you see when you see like ordinal like ranks at like 8, 7. Like it's just going to kind of shuffle around as people draft the first round.
Mhm.
But I think that everyone else, so we're going to kind of ignore the two of them for the most part. I think, but Jalen McMillan and DJ Moore, and then the Bears receivers, I thought it's was really interesting. I mean, we saw McMillan drop because they brought in a wide receiver, and we are like, what is that? Like, that's just more competition. We thought that he was going to kind of ascend, and this seems like ascension is going to be capped maybe a little bit with opportunity. And then the Bears have just had like this negative stink around them. They brought in a receiver. They brought in like a first round top 10 overall tight end. So a lot of competition there.
We saw Caleb fell. And same thing from earlier with Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay adds to the offense with a round 1 receiver and Baker falls. It's like uh,
Mm-hmm.
it's very interesting. It's very interesting. Now the Bears, I do agree some of these pieces have to fall. It's you're probably going to see a timeshare. Who's going to take the hit is going to be interesting. Um, but a couple of these guys, if you believe that they were going to be good leading into the big board, into the NFL draft, which that was some of the buzz. New OC change, everyone's excited. Caleb, year 2. Now you get them adding another rookie pass catcher, 2 with Colson Loveland at pick 10. Now people are coming off the click, waiting for ADPs to settle, seeing where their true worth is in this market, and then maybe tapping back into the Bears pieces. But they've continued to fall from day one as well.
I think it's interesting. I mean, if they don't draft Luther Burden, I think it's kind of the opposite. You're going to be
Mm,
like, whoa, they improved the offense and da da da. Now they're like, they improved the offense and brought in competition. Like, what happens if he isn't like this crazy competition and like it is DJ Moore and Odunze is like the true number one, number two, like the guys you're going to run out every single time, and you're mixing in this like high leverage wide receiver that like does like rookie things and expands at the end of the year. Like I don't know. You see teams support three really good receivers all the time. So uh, I'm kind
Yeah,
of excited about the Bears drafting them now. There's multiple ways to do it at multiple points in the draft.
they don't bring in one of the two. I'd probably say it'd be Luther Burden. If they don't bring in Luther Burden, like you probably see DJ Moore go up to the 1-2 turn and maybe sneak into I'm sorry, not 1-2, the 2-3, and maybe sneak into the second round. Just based off of Bears buzz, but it's definitely a lot more muddy. And then some of the coach speak, we're reminded
Mhm.
that they remember that DJ Moore wasn't always showing the most effort. The one famous play of him just running directly off the field. Crazy work. Crazy work.
Yeah.
All right, let's pull up the most recent risers and fallers chart you have here. ADP risers.
So yeah, this is through the rest of the week. I think that the as of day one is where I'll be showing from like in started tournament going forward, just because we saw through that like exercise. There's such a massive reset that happens in that first day,
Mhm.
and then we still see it happen going with the further guys like through the rest of the week. But um, comparing guys to like their first day completely mispriced is just wrong.
Mm.
Okay, so risers here. We see Anthony Richardson rise, and like I think that's a function of that there is literally no one else to draft in that point from like a quarterback that you think is going to be a starter.
Yeah.
Um, Caleb Williams for the rest of the week is gets steamed up a little bit, and steamed up a little bit is really relative at quarterback here. They're just moving ever so slightly on the risers chart, just because everyone's staying put. Um, but it's people that I think make sense. Caleb Williams in a better situation this year. Justin Fields should be staying as is. Tyler Show is going to be like he's drafted now, and then Baker Mayfield has a better
Yeah.
offense. So guys that more like were able to hold their ADP when the whole rest of the position was falling.
And we gave them a pretty big boost. I want to say we gave them around 7 picks for Baker and Caleb Williams. Caleb might have been 8 or 9 picks as really big winners at the quarterback position just with the NFL draft giving them more weapons. So that's it's interesting just the landscape we're in that people are so stack focused that it's almost like people are afraid to backstack Caleb, right? If you don't
Mm-hmm.
get Odunze, if you don't get DJ Moore, it's so easy to still backstack Caleb with Luther Burden, with Colson Loveland, and that's like that's a beautiful thing because they're going in the same range, and that'll be an interesting talk too. Like how far can those rookie receivers go? Are they there's less room for them? Pull that range up later.
Yeah, so then the running backs we see here next, and some overlapping names. We start to see like what people's like true worth is. I think it's so notable that okay, everyone's like day one is there really value in day one after drafting after day one, because until you know the schedule, I mean like right here it tells you you're getting like still massive movement between day one or day two and the rest of like today. So 5 days, only 2 rounds of value, or a round and a half of value on a lot of these guys. So I think it's just still moving a fair amount. You see Ashton Genty move up a couple picks. RJ Harvey, DeAndre Swift, similar names as before. Brian
Mhm.
Robinson, you see pop up on the chart. And yeah, just this is, I think, probably where we're going to see like their true seal. Maybe I don't even know. What do you think? Who do you think is more? Who has more in there, like from
Room.
a growth? Yeah, more room for growth. Is the
The
answer all of them?
the easy answer there. Now, when you put it in your chart wise, like percent for their price of how much they're actually worth with that pick. There's obviously more movement for Jaden Blue because he goes later. But when you go percent wise, Genty could pass a couple of those receivers. He could pass uh, like the Nico Puka. He could go ahead of that whole group. So I could see that happening, but B-Rob seems pretty capped here at 93.7. Swift, we'll see. I think right now it's a good place for him. If they add Chubb, which if there's rumors, I don't know if it's the best thing to be like fully reaching on him. If you're getting him around ADP, fine. But he could fall just a little bit. It's not like it's going to be the Swift killer. But some of that goal line work, we already have kind of jotted out for Rashawn Johnson anyways. So Chubb would hurt Rashawn more than anything. Harvey here, the buzz might not be done. My bet's probably on Harvey.
Yeah, this is like we're like, okay, day one he went from like 150 to 75. Now he still went up another round and a half to 60, and he's almost in round 5. Like, that's wild. That's wild. Like there's still a fair amount of risk. We have no clue what they're going to do with the running back and how it's going to work.
And that's why it was sort of worth drafting still, and knowing that if you're going to go into these draft rooms and focus getting these players that are rising and get these unique combinations just due to ADP movement, RJ Harvey in the 70s was still good. Like anytime I could get him at 70, it was an insta click for me because I knew his true worth was probably somewhere for me around like 52, 53, right after Mixon. I have a tough time going Harvey over Mixon right now with the current news, with the current information we have. That could change. But yeah, he's he's going ahead of some names still that make me like just think twice about it. Like, is this correct with what we know right now? Like ahead of Kamara, where basically all they did is touch on their O line and make their Russian O line better. Ahead of K-Walk, I don't fully mind just because you have a little more of a timeshare there with K-Walk. But the next RB, he's going to pass. He's going to pass Henderson at ADP 58, RJ Harvey 60.2. Like that's coming at a place near you soon. Chuba Hubbard at 57.6. And then you have Mixon at 51. So I would have Harvey right behind Mixon, basically.
Yeah, that's so we'll continue to see him atop these charts the next month or so.
I bet absolutely, because the percent wise from moving up from 60 to 53, 54 is going to be still very big.
Yeah. Tight ends, some similar names at the top: Taylor, Loveland, rookies that seem to have landed in great spots. Then new names down the bottom. I think this is like how people are drafting it. It's you got to look at the end of the draft and you're trying to fill out tight ends because you want to push tight end to a little bit later. You have option A, which is draft a young guy who seems to be unproven but also very exciting. Or option B is draft someone who has done it before, and that's what these guys represent, is guys who've done it before. You got to also with quarterbacks that go way and like earlier, and you like want to stack them up and build those situations out. So I've been drafting Hunter Henry. I think that the Patriots is a fun team to build. Will continue to grow as like a mature individual in your tight end room. Zach, same thing. And then Gesicki had some good games at the end of the season. So kind of the same story with all three of these guys.
Yeah. It's funny going through. I did some of the other contests just to dip the toes into, because every contest, like marathon, sprint, all those contests have their own ADPs. And when I jump into the marathon, I saw that like, oh, Zach Ertz goes at like, and I don't want to here. I'm actually going to click on it and search it. I don't want to lie here. I want to get accurate. 144.8. Zach Ertz goes at 144. And we know these ADPs they're still fresh because not as many drafts have gone through. But I do think the marathon's pretty good at getting closer to where players' true worth is. Like if we take like the ADPs from last year with some of them, right? Like Derrick Henry was flying up the board. He was like a mid-second in the marathon versus like late third in the BBM drafts. It just gets a little closer, in my opinion, to like their true worth. And here, yeah, you're getting a rise out of some of those late tight ends that could just be really good values and good babysitters if you have like a Colson Loveland as your tight end one.
Well, it's like the break the slate kind of guy, or is less valued in the marathon, I would assume. It's just kind of the guys that can just lift the floor a little bit and get you the
Exactly.
points that you need. And so we see that that's kind of devalued in BBM, but these guys are just
Definitely.
good tight ends.
Definitely.
And then to wide receivers, a lot of similar names that we actually kind of, I think it's the same five, um, which is
It
hilarious.
is.
It's just
It
shuffling
is.
it around a little bit.
Yeah, you get 10 pick rise out of Hunter from 50 to 40 is ridiculous for the range. Besh from 150 to 130. That's a big change from April 29th to May 4th here. Lamb moving up over half a pick. Trey Harris from 120 to 107 and Kyle Williams from 143 to 127. We're going to see Kyle Williams again sometime soon. Same thing with Jack Besh, I think, although it should be starting to slow down. We will start to get some
Mm-hmm.
different names on this list. I don't think Travis Hunter, we'll see if he makes the next one. We'll see if he makes the next one. Let me pull up the other. Now we got the fallers from the last week here. And shout out to Billy for putting all these charts together. He's posted all these on his Twitter. The link is in the description of the video. I'll also put it in the live chat in just a moment here.
Yeah, we're going to be doing the variety of, we'll be using this as our base. We'll be doing a little bit of comparison of tournament to tournament using the same structure, which will be, I think, is a good thought experiment. We have a bunch of things planned for this summer. I'm excited.
A lot of good content on the way. A lot of good discussions that are always appreciated. And the charts just give you guys a good visual. So make sure you're giving them a follow. This is the Lord's work right here. Top fallers from the 29th to the 4th based on their draft capital.
Yeah, I mean, this is what we talked about earlier. It's just the later round guys become less scarce in an 18 round draft where people are drafting 2 rather than 3, or 3 rather than 4. So that's what we see here is the late round guys is kind of like, well, tick back a little bit more. And I definitely feel it when I draft that quarterback is expensive right now. And I'm excited because if you want to draft a 3 quarterback team, it's kind of hard to do. If you have to draft Matthew Stafford and pick around 14 rather than around like 16.
One sec. Too many tabs. Too many tabs. I got lost in tab land. Yeah, I agree. It's sort of the landscape of people making that adjustment of 20 round drafts to 18 round drafts. And it happened a little quicker this year than I expected. People were definitely a little more ready to make that change. And obviously we saw a couple teams maybe invest too much at QB or too much at tight end just coming from the 20 round drafts. But largely we see, like you said, and like we've seen here, is those middle round QBs are falling. And it's funny, sometimes you did see a mistake. Like I've heard comments of like, man, I had to take this QB because he's such a value right now. Well, he was actually currently falling just due to the landscape of 20 rounds to 18 rounds and people just going 2. But we'll see if this continues. Thing is, after like Staffy's off the board, after like Geno Smith on Vegas is off the board, it starts to get scary. If you don't have your second QB and you're looking at like Sam Darnold just waving at you, like, come on, I don't see ghosts anymore. Or you're looking at A Rich, and he's like, I'll play 7 good games for you this year, man. Draft me. It gets scarce. Aaron Rodgers over there, like, I'm in the desert. Like, I might be playing football this year.
Yeah,
It's
there's
almost
like
panic time.
Note for next year, like we should that day one rankings are off a 20 round draft, and we're playing 18 rounds now, and that is just going to happen at through quarterbacks. There's
Yes.
that, and then is it going to still continue to happen? It actually may have like a slow trickle that the quarterback may just slightly devalue, especially in the later rounds, just because of this thing that we're going to see. At what point will it stop? Yeah, Ben's being hilarious right now.
I'm just
um,
seeing it.
yeah, but yeah, we've seen a little bit of quarterback drops. Okay, let's go to running back now.
Najee, welcome back to the fallers list.
Yeah, this is where we see some of the fallers actually kind of like not just have some of the Saquon and Bijan fall that kind of looks kind of
Hmm.
funky in the first round by half a pick. We see
Hmm.
Najee continue to fall into pick like 100, which seems to make sense for someone who will be in the offense early and then losing it late. I don't know. I think I still would put him a little bit lower, but round 9 he starts to become a little bit more palatable, a little bit. But then
Right. Right.
Jerome Ford and then Dylan Sampson's here as well because he's the opposite side of this. Like, who's the number 2? We don't know. And Jalen Warren showing up as well as the someone who there was desire for or hope that he could be the running back one there, but seems to
Mhm.
always be the running back 1B, the bridesmaid, not the bride kind of situation for Jalen Warren.
Yeah, and has the fall and has the fall stopped for Najee? I'm not certain, but it's funny. We had this conversation earlier with the Browns running backs, and it's like people don't know who it is, so they're just gonna let both fall. But I do think one of these guys will get a boost at some point when we get clarity. You'll get a pretty sizable boost from the RB2 here. Someone that you're gonna want to be on. I think people are just sort of waiting for that information. This is where Greg from Coach Speak really helps me get ahead on this information over the field and then put it into the ranks and get you guys ahead by being able to rank them appropriately. I really lean on that early Coach Speak. Najee, same thing, the fall. Jalen Warren, I still think these guys trickled down a little bit, but they're getting closer. They're getting closer. Tyler Warren, I think we said right after the NFL draft when we did our ADP show, like him and Colson Loveland at the very least have to swap places. Colson from like 126 up to like 105, and Warren from 105 to the 120s, and it's looking like we're getting that pretty quickly at 117 now.
Yeah, for sure. I'm trying to think what else is here. Like, so Brock Bowers shows up interestingly. I don't know.
Mm,
I don't know how much you're going to actually see him drop, but I just think that's a function of like wide receiver thirst. There might be like peak puppy season that he gets even a little bit lower when people double
mm-hmm.
tap wide receiver. And then Isaiah Likely shows up on our charts for the first time today, and that's because there is like does hope that one day that like Mark Andrews would be gone and he'd get full run, but
Yeah.
again, that's a always bridesmaid, never the bride kind of situation for him. He's always going to be the number 2. And interesting, but not a pick of like not a 12th round guy. Should be more of like a 16th, 17th round guy, probably.
I wonder because of Genty now going in the first round versus the big board where he was like pick 13. I wonder now, is that a product Bowers falling because of the Genty teams now maybe grabbing a receiver ahead of Bowers, like London, um, some of these guys, and those two probably don't line up, but it is interesting. Maybe Genty, people are worried about some of the target share stuff for Bowers, but I don't know, because in 18 round drafts, I prefer Bowers now more so than the 20 round drafts. A little easier to catch up at tight end. You don't have that. You're not catching up to the ceiling, the single game ceiling of Bowers, but at least on a 3 tight end build, you can at least get their advance rate wise, and he's falling. He's falling in the 18 round drafts where you can comfortably stop at 2 with Bowers, with the late guy, Bowers Jaceki. Bowers Conklin, if you want to play ball, or Bowers Mason Taylor. But it's very it's very interesting that structurally it's better to draft elite tight end because you can stop at 2 and have that advantage over the field. And he's still falling because
I
you're
wonder. I
gaining a
wonder if
roster
there's.
position back.
I wonder if people think of it the opposite way, though, that because in 20 rounds you have 2 more picks, if you go a detour to a tight end, then you can like actually have more like 2 players or 1 more player to make it work. Versus here, you just kind of feel like you're running thin. Um, I don't
But
know, but
that's always the case though, right? That's always the case of like elite tight end. There's that risk. First off, Bowers, you have to be right. He has to finish as the 1. So there's the pressure there. Sure, he has that elite ceiling, single game ceiling, which is sort of it's baked into the price for sure. But yeah, you're not going 3 tight ends with Bowers. You have less chance of hitting on someone that goes late and is worth so much more than their ADP, which is sort of the draw to a 3 tight end build versus the elite, because you're already paying for that production. But yeah, I now am on the Bowers click. So I appreciate this
Mhm.
fall, guys. You can continue to send him to 16, 17, please.
Yeah,
Harold
absolutely.
Fannin, going undrafted now, in most drafts.
And where do you think Isaiah Likely should go?
He's getting closer to 150s, and that's where I'm mixing him in. He has to go behind Ferguson. I'll tell you that for free. He's got to go behind Fergie Ferg. And Fergie Ferg is in the 140 range now.
Yeah, he
Ferg's at
does now.
137.9. So they just flipped.
But
Let me
like
see.
Dallas Goddard, like I don't know. I feel like Dallas Goddard like is gonna be have more opportunity than Isaiah Likely. Am I wrong there?
Yeah. No. Likely should probably go around 150 right after Pitts and Goddard.
Yeah.
You have
Fill that.
Strange there. You
Yeah,
have
fill the
Ertz,
space
Henry,
between.
Gesicki. Now it's like, okay, the upside of what likely can be if they run a lot of 12, or which we saw last year, and they didn't really touch on the offense. So you shouldn't see a huge change, but you have that upside of if Andrews goes down, we know it likely can be a league winner. He's like a handcuff running back almost. It's like that change of pace handcuff running back, like Algier. Like he's going to get a certain amount of play. The ceiling isn't going to be there unless the guy in front of him goes down, and you need to be around 8% of this guy. But now I'm willing to draft him when he falls past some of these guys.
Unfortunately, with like Likely, it's pretty hard to imagine a situation where a 2 tight end build with Likely makes sense.
I agree.
And that's so you're gonna either like you're gonna draft him with an elite guy who the elite guy is like takes 80% of the games and you have Likely hit for like a couple big games and he plays into his role, or he's like better than Andrews. Does an Andrews fall off? But like in his current situation, that what we expect from him, he's not going to contribute a lot. So you need to kind of almost build in 3 tight ends. Like I guess you could do it 2 tight ends. It's just like a much harder. You're not getting the 2 consistent guys.
Right. So maybe a top tight end like McBride Bowers with likely someone that's getting a lot of volume. It's a little tougher with Kittle, who can disappear for several weeks and then go for a 30 banger. Likely isn't that guy to fill in the gaps for Kittle. I think that's sort of what you're getting around
That's
to.
exactly that's exactly
Construction
what I'm getting.
with likely is you have to be a little more conscious about it, which I agree.
Yeah. And then receivers, we see DJ Moore continue to fall. Kind of same conversation as earlier. Nico Collins is falling. I don't know. I like Nico Collins this year. I think he's gonna.
Me too.
I don't know if I understand that one. Same Bears situation. But like, so I understand like Christian Kirk falling because like the elder wide receivers in Houston seem to have been like gotten a lot noisier. But like Nico Collins is a dog. Like a
Right.
dog. Like he's not
Yeah.
gonna he's not losing targets here. He may never have like a huge like the 35% or 30% target share just because of the way he is more of like a down the field, middle of the like harder routes, I guess. Not just like cheap routes, doesn't seem like, but I don't know. Like he's going to be the center of that offense. And if they're better, like I'll take him at the turn all day.
It's like people forgot. They're like, oh man, they added so many pieces to this offense, which they did, but they also lost pieces, right? Like Diggs isn't there
Hmm.
anymore. He cleared Diggs last year when Diggs was healthy. Yes, he was an older receiver, 30, but Tank Dell was there, right? So he
Hmm.
cleared these guys already. You saw it. They add a couple rookies, people panic. They add Christian Kirk, who Kirk, if anything, will help him in his role in the slot. Um, I think it's great. I've been loving the Nico click now. Man, you're getting some crazy combinations. If you're drafting on the back end, some of these combos that people are sharing are just truly, truly sick.
And I'm like a the kind of drafter who will set out specific like starts that I want to accomplish. And one of
Mm-hmm.
those starts that I want to accomplish is Nico, Brian Thomas Jr., which you don't really need a ton to happen to come into your lap. Then
Mm.
Rashi Rice, and then bring Travis Hunter onto that team and kind of do the Jacksonville stuff, but also have these elite like other two guys and just zero classic zero RB. And just you're gonna have like, oh, that's I need to put that in my portfolio.
Yeah, it's good to be conscious about that too. Before we take off, I'd like to just show this sprint draft. And if you're not doing the sprints right now, I know schedule's not out, and it's like that's a big part of it. But some of these ADPs are unsettled, and some of the people in these rooms are have let the ball slide a little too far. Genti goes at 13.7, by the way, in the sprint right now. That's not going to last. Somehow I get him at pick 16, and I get it with neighbors. Like some of these sprint drafts are probably worth mixing in right now. A lot of unsettled ADPs. Tolbert hasn't risen yet, and you are thinking about end of season upside for that contest. So like Rice, who you expect to be healthy, Diggs after what we think could be a slow start. Some of the rookies that are starting to heat up. Um, a very interesting contest to be just mixing in a little bit. I know it's probably a little minus EV because it's week 15, 16, and 17 added together on separate weeks for a combined score, right? So 2 out of 12 advance, and then it's like a 9,300 team final. So it is very heavy on focusing the schedule, but just something to keep in mind that those draft rooms are crazy right now.
Yeah, and that's a great lead into like or way to wrap up this show is that we are next week. I have planned to talk about the different tournaments, some of the structure, advance rates, and then also some of the like other like unique kind of the sprint and some of that stuff. So we'll have like a conversation about those in addition to the ADP stuff. Now that we've gone through week one, we know what we're talking about. We should theoretically have a quicker conversation, but I feel like every week it's going to be extended.
Obviously,
Yes,
always
just
we did
knowing
good.
us.
We did good today. We stayed around
Yeah.
the hour marker. That was the goal.
Mhm.
Um, Billy, thank you for sharing your beautiful. It's like artwork to me, being able to do this stuff on. Is it how do you create the charts? You want to give a little backstory to the work here?
Yeah, I write the code in R. Like I'm not like a software engineer. I'm an accountant that got a master's in data science because I'm like pretty good with numbers. So I have like some pretty good coding skills, but I wouldn't like create best ball overlay. That's not within my bounds. I guess. But so like yeah, I'm using R to do this using the CSVs that the Underdog provides, and I'll have this stuff every Sunday for you guys. The charts that are similar, and also probably providing like tournament comparisons and some other fun things that we think are useful.
Yeah, hell yeah! Looking forward to. And you guys, you're not going to want to miss the next show. Put it down on the calendar. 10 a.m. next Sunday. Covering the contests, like expected advance rates from every contest, chance of making the finals with edge baked in. I think you're going to have like a 20%, 30, 40% edge baked in to see how the numbers change. Uh, something that was extremely helpful for me that you've already done. I've already seen this work, and it was great from a daily standpoint too, to really pick out which one of the dailies are giving you the best odds too. So looking forward to that, Billy.
Mhm.
But You guys can follow Billy at Sports Viz VIZBJ. Billy Jones, link is in the comments. Link is in the description. Appreciate you guys. If you enjoyed the stream, go down, slap the like, drop a sub. We're on the road to 3K, and we draft best ball teams every single week. So if you enjoy that, make sure you hit the bell for notifications so you can jump in those live streams and take my money. I truly appreciate it. Billy, have a good one, buddy. Pounders.